always curious to hear the great insights our presenting partner McKinsey brings to ICDIA Europe. So we're excited to have with us today Simon Kessler and Piero Gancia, senior partners at McKinsey, to share their thought-provoking perspective on the state of the Insurtech industry. They'll also look at winning models, what's needed to succeed and attract investors and risk capital providers. Please welcome Simon Kessler and Piero Gancia.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Piero Gancia, and together with my colleague Simon, we are going to present you what we see as the outlook of the Insurtech industry, as well as what is the shape of the Insurtech of the future. For this first part, let me start with this page, which I think describes nicely what happened to the Insurtech world over the past 5 years. So first of all, you had the steep rise in 2020 and 2021, then the fall in 2022 and early 2023, and now a softer, possibly more safe situation. But these arise two main questions that we will try to address. First, will Insurtech fly again? Second, how high can really fly? To address the first question, let me start with the evolution of VC investments over the past years. We call it heaven, hell, and purgatory for a reason. If you look at the blue bars, which shows VC investments into Insurtech, you see that they plummeted over the past years. And if you look at the white line, you also see that the relevance of VC investments into Insurtech decreased over time. When we expand this and we look at all types of investments, including also private equity, including M&A, including IPOs, the picture doesn't change dramatically. However, we also notice we have IPOs, and it's worthwhile seeing how these listed companies are developing. And looking at that and analyzing the Insurtechs which were listed in 2020, 21, and 22, there are about 20 of them. We all know that they suffered a lot in the last years, but if we look at just at the last 12 months, we see actually a pretty polarized picture. We see that more than half of them, 11 out of 20, actually grew their market cap by more than 10%. And 6 of them, about a third, actually doubled their market cap. So this is interesting. It's not back to the level of the IPO valuation, but it's interesting. They must be doing something right. And so we want to see what are they doing right, these companies that were able to grow so well the market cap. Sustainability is probably part of the answer to this, as abundance of capital in 2019, 20, and 21 actually, coupled with these very high expectation for growth, created pretty unsustainable business models. So when we work with these Insurtechs and we try to address this problem of sustainability, we see high on their agenda optimizing the customer acquisition cost, first of all. Streamlining organization, as well as going back to the root of insurance, technical excellence, both in claims as well as in pricing, trying to manage customer experience and satisfaction, as well as the actual insurance foundations. In pricing, managing discounts, so trying to go back to an APTP ratio that is more sustainable than what we saw in the past, that fueled very fast growth, but without the ability to really sustain the business model. When we put it all together and we look at the structure of a P&L of an Insurtech a few years back, we see a picture that is pretty unsustainable. Let's face it. I mean, the premiums that are created through these low prices are not able to cover for high cost of claims, high acquisition cost, high OPEX. The situation is pretty clear in front of all of us. However, these Insurtechs that were able to really improve over the past years started 24 months ago a journey of back to sustainability, back to a sustainable business model acting on two types of levers. The first type of levers is those that you would imagine are more proper of Insurtechs, like Gen AI, advanced analytics, all the new technologies applied to these business models. The other one is actually much more simple, is going back again to the roots of insurance, getting right claims, getting right pricing, and also having leaner organizations. So really acting on those levers that can deliver value in the very short term. The result is something that is much more sustainable, as you can see here. Not all Insurtechs are at profitability yet. However, we expect to see that in the coming 1-2 years. And we have this expectation of 2026, which we hope can be also a good hope for the industry to go back on track. So to answer the first question that we said at the beginning, yes, the answer is yes. Insurtechs are able to fly again. Some of them are already starting to taking off. Now, back to the second question. And if we look from the Insurtech perspective, eye into the sky, we see two types of players, among others. We see traditional insurers, and we see in the stratosphere big techs. And here on the page, we see how the top 5 of each one of these segments, the top 5 Insurtechs, the top 5 traditional insurers, the top 5 big techs, compare in terms of market cap. The difference is quite amazing and difficult to, let's say, bridge the gap between where Insurtechs are today and where big techs are today. So can they really try to bridge this gap? We don't know, but we wanted to get some inspiration from the big techs to see what are they doing right and whether this can be a source of inspiration for the insurance and Insurtech industry. So, few traits that distinguish Insurtechs, big techs, are first of all that they have been around for many years. So it's not something that was created overnight, as we all know. It took decades to have this very high valuation and to have these very high and very big business models. Then they were able to really grow revenues even after several years and still able to double their revenue size in a matter of 4 or 5 years, which is quite incredible when you have a starting point which is tens of hundreds of billions of revenues. Then they have a margin, an EBITDA margin, so profitability, that is actually very, very high, uncomparable to the rest of their industries. And lastly, when analysts look at them, the expectation for the future is very, very high in terms of EPS growth. So putting all together, it's very difficult to imagine that you can have such a strong business model unless you do perfect execution, but especially you rightly pick your market, where you want to compete, where you want to win. And these players actually were able not just to shape their market, but sometimes to reinvent them or invent them. Now, let's apply that to insurance and Insurtech. We have in insurance many risks, and they are in front of us that are new and emerging. We have secular trends like aging and longevity, climate change, the widespread technology and cyber risk that are in front of all of us and are creating very high challenges for society, businesses, the economy overall. And Insurtechs are already trying to tackle these areas, and we believe that these are the right areas, and these are just examples, but are central examples of the areas where you could actually have and create an Insurtech that would be able to really grow and get a size similar to what is the size of the big techs of today. Clearly, it will not take 1 year or 2 years, it will take time, but these are huge markets to solve huge questions of today's society. Let me also say that those Insurtechs that are working on these areas are trying to address a few questions that we see here, like how to manage the inclusion versus the insurability of specific risks, where to find the risk capital, which currently is lacking in some situations, how to enrich the business models through ecosystems, as well as how to develop an integrated business model which starts from prevention and goes to claims via insurance. So all these questions are difficult, obviously, to address and to win, but we believe that the Insurtech which will be able to do that will actually get the size and the success that big techs have today. Now, having said that, I think it's now time to hand over to my colleague Simon, who will give us a view on what is the image of the Insurtech of the future.
Indeed. Thank you, Piero. How do we now get back to heaven? You mentioned it. There are many opportunities and themes out there. And we try to paint a bit the picture here of a future Insurtech that can thrive and go back to heaven. We see three ingredients that need to be true. One is, of course, there needs to be AI, Gen AI, as a core component. I mean, everybody is talking about it here in all places. All Insurtechs, I think, have an angle to it in their stories. But I think what is also important is it's not sufficient. We saw that, I think, in the first wave of Insurtechs around 2015, everything was digital. And just by having everything digital, I think it was not enough. Digital journeys didn't attract as many customers as people hoped. And I think here with Gen AI, there are also challenges. So you need to think, of course, where to apply it, where it can really add value, make a difference, but then also how to apply it. Now, I think most models still require some human involvement, so that needs to be right. And I will talk about some areas where we believe it could make a lot of sense. Second, and Piero mentioned that, there needs to be a clear path to profitable growth. So other than a few years ago, nobody is willing to finance 10-year hockey sticks or even more. So there needs to be profitability first, very quickly, and then scale up, not rapid scale up in all the countries, and then maybe in a decade or so, some way to grow profitably. That means also a clear way to attract customers. I think that was way too unclear in the past, how customer acquisition would work. It could be B2C clients, it could be B2B, but there needs to be a clear path. And then I think the third ingredient, and we have been saying this now for several years actually, I think is even more true today, is that collaboration is more important than disruption. So Insurtechs collaborating with incumbents to work really jointly as one team and evolve and revolutionize together. We saw disruption is not easy. It hasn't worked in the insurance industry as people hoped. It doesn't mean there is no disruption at all of end-to-end insurance models, but the bigger value in our view in the next couple of years at least is coming from collaboration. Because there's still so much in all the insurance value chains of the large insurance players that can be improved, massive value pools. And what are these areas? So there are just a couple of examples along the value chain. And really, I think with AI and now with Gen AI, we believe in really all areas of the value chain you can make a difference. Just some highlights from our recent project work. So in the sales and distribution area, I think there's a lot going on, of course, with marketing, hyper-personalization, campaigns fueled by Gen AI. But also there's a lot around using AI, Gen AI in the context of traditional channels like agents. So all the co-pilots that are coming now to the market to make agents more productive, I think are one area. But also if you think about churn prediction and churn prevention, it's one area we have been working on quite a bit. In one example, with an analytics boutique and a large insurer, we could reduce churn rates by 2 percentage points, which is quite massive if you think about it. So if you translate this into how much more new business you would need, it's quite significant. And that you can now do. And there's a lot of value that you can basically capture tomorrow and not just in a couple of years. Second, in pricing and underwriting, this has been an area that was addressed by AI and many Insurtechs already for several years, of course, with data enrichment, new models. I think what is now possible, and we see that, for example, in the commercial area to support underwriters with co-pilots, which is quite productive, can increase productivity massively. In the area of claims, I mean, the big cases are around effectiveness, if you think about fraud analytics, but also efficiency. Supporting claims handlers with tools to be much more productive, to don't spend time on simple tasks. I mean, here we see also productivity gains of 40% or even more in the entire claims process. And last but not least, I think in the whole area of operations, customer support and IT, here we would say I think Gen AI is a big lever again in automation, but also I think in developing code, which is a big area for insurance companies. And I think in all these areas, Insurtechs are well positioned to collaborate. The big insurance companies, I mean, are not able to scale up their own analytics units very fast, as we see, I mean, across many large conglomerates. And Insurtechs can plug in and work together. So that's really an opportunity for immediate value creation. Just some numbers from our recent project work where you see, I mean, that it can really make a big difference. So these are all real figures in scaled examples to make marketing much more efficient, to improve the pricing models, but also claims I mentioned. Factor 2 here, and with a better accuracy, and also in the productivity area, 30 to 40% more productive processes, really at scale and not in some niche processes. So this is all now possible. It's just at the beginning. It's not captured. These are small, I mean, pilots in one place that work, but they need to be scaled through the organizations, through the companies. So lots of room for growth for Insurtechs. Then a few double clicks. The first one on sales. If you think about sales and Insurtechs, in 2015, the big wave was around online distribution, direct distribution. I think that was the main angle where a lot of Insurtechs, the first wave of Insurtechs, tried to disrupt. But actually, I think an interesting development here. The market for online insurance, which you see on the left-hand side, just here a German example from my home market, it grew nicely since 2015. So plus 60% above the underlying insurance market. But actually what happened is this growth was not coming mainly from Insurtechs and innovative direct players, but to a large extent, even larger extent, from multi-line insurers and big incumbents. So they captured much more growth. So it means just because there are Insurtechs addressing it, incumbents are not standing still, and trying to disrupt is very difficult, as mentioned. At the same time, I think what Insurtechs did, they defocused a bit from online and direct distribution and went more into traditional channels. Initially, they started in 2015 focusing on direct aggregators, and then they added some agent distribution. And what we see now in many places is actually that the traditional channels are the main distribution channel. Brokers, for example, increasingly also bancassurance. So coming much more to the average market mix. And actually, where we see massive opportunity, as mentioned, it is in these traditional channels. On the right-hand side, the right bar is how insurance is distributed today. So direct and online distribution is still 10% below, depends a bit on the line of business. The vast majority is through physical channels. And these channels are not very digital yet in most places, and they don't use analytics and data a lot. So there's a big opportunity to make these channels much more productive in improving customer value, thinking about customer lifetime, and working together with insurance companies and distributors on that. Second example, I think in claims, and this is based on our claims work and the bigger survey we did, we see 3 to 5 percentage points improvement potential in loss ratio still today out there after, I mean, there was a lot done, but now especially with AI, you can do a next wave. And when you look where companies stand on this, that's from our recent survey on the right-hand side, just degree of maturity. I think you find that most insurance companies are somewhere in the middle. They have done something, but they are not fully advanced yet, very few. So again, an area for collaboration, for adding value at scale for Insurtechs. And the last area I would mention is the whole area of automation and productivity. This chart and the analysis comes from a recently published work from our McKinsey Global Institute, where we estimated what tasks can be automated. And by type of task, you see here the white bars, what can be done with AI. So there is already quite some potential. And with Gen AI, you can improve even more in all areas, especially in that whole area of decision making. And when you think where most FTEs today are in insurance, this is often in that top area. So there's a lot of potential to automate, to make humans more productive, and actually focus the employees less on simple tasks, but where it matters, where they can create more value for the customer, for example, or for society, for the company. So there's massive potential to reinvest that productivity gain. And when you think about the insurance industry in the last 10, 15 years, we haven't really seen productivity movements. So if you look at unit cost, for example, after adjusting for inflation, they have been quite flat across the industry. Very different, for example, from automotive or other industries. Insurance has been flat. And now I think, especially with Gen AI, we see potential here to go really for a step change in productivity. And already, I think I said, first pilots proved to be quite successful. So let us close with this quote from Steve Jobs. I mean, as mentioned, it's not about one idea. It's really about a team to make it happen. Not one person, and also about collaboration. So, and with team here, we mean not one Insurtech team only, but in a wider sense. So, Insurtech together with incumbents can really make a difference. So we are confident that this can go to heaven again. Thank you very much.